Previously on Funny Science Fiction.
I was pretending to be a seal on the beach, and I was just saying, I'm a seal, and I'm on the beach, and here I go. Because they just can't, poor little guys, they just hop. They can't really move around.
Hi, this is Robin Curtis, and welcome to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
The podcast where Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, and even Babylon 5 all live under one roof. Just different sized rooms, of course.
We have a special guest host today who will be here to help us ask questions of today's guest in the hot seat. Shannon Perry is a former guest and the creator of the fantastic sci-fi podcast called The Oz 9. Be sure to check that out. Thanks for joining us, Shannon.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, Shannon was on here before. She was an absolute hoot, and we expect more from that. Not to put too much pressure on you, Shannon, but yeah, we expect you to deliver.
We expect you to be hilarious.
That's right. All right, and that all leads us. Cue. There you go, and go. Now that all leads us to our today's guest. Now you might recognize today's guest from her work and some Star Trek stuff. I say Star Trek stuff because she was obviously in Star Trek 3, Star Trek 4, and some episodes, and even a fan-made adaptation called Excelsior. Robin Curtis took over the role of Saavik, playing the Vulcan character in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, and Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. And we're super excited to talk a little Trek with you today, Robin. Thanks for being here, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Tim. I'm excited to be here too.
Well, good. So we've been talking to you. I've been talking to you rather for a little bit behind the scenes till you got a time where you could come up and join us. And I know you've been super busy, so it means a lot to us that you're able to steal away a little time and be on here with us today. So we have a few questions for you. Nothing too serious, and we just want to have a good time. So here we go.
Super.
All right. So Star Trek 3 and Star Trek 4 weren't the first or the last acting jobs that you had in Hollywood. In fact, you had quite the distinguished career. Several shows that helped define my youth: Knight Rider, MacGyver. Those are some of my favorites. I loved Knight Rider as a kid. That car was awesome. Mm-hmm. Anyway, perhaps you could share for us, though, what it was like for you to step into such a high-profile movie with an extremely popular nerd universe base behind your back.
Oh, gosh. It's been fun recently. I actually, guys, I held on to my calendars from 1983 and 1984. I'm a little embarrassed actually as to how much stuff I've held on to. I have every paycheck I've ever received in
that's cool.
the basement. Yeah, it is kind of cool. Only in this moment, I can tell you, I met Leonard Nimoy on June 28th, 1983 at 10:15 in the morning. And I love that I can, that I'm able to figure that out. But let me go back. Let me go back. So I grew up in a small town, where a little kid could be a big fish in a little pond. And we had a particularly extraordinary music teacher / theater director. And so I was in the school musicals. And that's what I loved about theater and acting, is that I came from a musical theater background. And I played all the wenches and the great women of musical theater, like Aldunza in Man of La Mancha, and Nancy and Oliver and Eve in Applause. And in any case, I went to college and I pursued the same avocations in college, the extracurricular activities like theater and voice and stuff like that. And people just assume because you became an actress, that's what you wanted to be. But that's not what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a homicide detective.
Oh, wow.
And I was consumed by murder from a young age. I grew up with Richard Speck, this very bad man who killed some nurses in Chicago. And I was obsessed with the nurse that survived. And I grew up with In Cold Blood, by Truman Capote. And I was obsessed with the Clutter family. And what if that had been my family? So I used to do murder drills as a kid and literally, practice escaping from various parts of the house. And then climbing up a ladder, jumping from windows and climbing up a ladder to save, my fellow family members. My point being that I became an actress was a big left curve to begin with. And I went to New York. Another good friend who graduated from college a year ahead of me said, "You want to go to New York together and see how it goes?" And I really didn't have any better prospect at that point. I had a liberal arts degree, which literally qualifies you to do pretty much nothing. And so off I went to the city, and I lucked in to a cute little 1-bedroom apartment. We slept in a trundle bed, she and me. One of us pulled out, and there was no more floor square footage to be had. And I got a great waitressing job. And another pal from college invited me to audition for a little musical, an original musical written by sort of a Sondheim protege, if you will. So the music was particularly good, and the lyrics very complex. And I got into it, and I got an agent. I got an agent just from being in this one. Within 6 months of being in the city, I had an agent. I mean, that's breathtaking when you think about it. This girl from Podunk, who really was so. I was so inexperienced and so unambitious, and really not as talented as my competition, but I lucked out, and I got my first national commercial for Oil of Olay within a month or two of signing. So fast forward 3 years later, my lovely agents in the city said, "Robin, we think you would do so much better in Los Angeles." So in January of 1982, I go out to LA. I'm 25 years old, and I meet the casting department at Paramount. My manager sets up meetings all over town like I'm somebody when really I'm not. Only the casting departments don't know. He's playing the "you don't know her" card. She's coming, and she's from New York, and all this business. And I met a woman by the name of Elsa Bergeron, and I want to give her 100% credit. She's married to Michael Gross from Family Ties.
Okay.
Lovely, elegant woman. She said, "Where were you when we were casting Winds of War?" That was when they cast, I believe it was Jane Seymour in the sequel. Ally McGraw was in the original. A full year plus later, she remembers me for the Star Trek project. And at that time, guys, everything was very secretive. So we didn't know what the part was. I simply went to meet Elsa Bergeron and the head of casting, Stuart Jensen. And I offhandedly said, if I were to be a part of the franchise, I would love to play an alien. I didn't know what the character was, but I thought that I would somehow manage that better than having to play straight, as a human and react to all these crazy science fiction-y things. These nerdery things, to use your word, Tim.
Say, wait a minute, that's my word.
I know. That's a good one. I'm feeling it. And so, in any case, I'm sorry, long answer to your question. I go back. I go back the next day. I'm invited to meet Leonard Nimoy, and up until that point, guys, I had never known such a gentle introductory experience to somebody of his caliber. Normally when you have a shot at something and it's, it involves the studio and it's a big deal, there are a dozen people in the room and you have no idea who is the important person, the person that you need to impress, the person who's really making the decisions. Could be head of film, could be the producers, could be the writer, could be the casting director's assistant, but all these people are there and you're usually not introduced to anybody in particular. You might get direction and that now identifies who the director was in the room, kind of thing. But essentially, you do your thing and you leave and you have no idea whether you connected with anybody. But this was one-on-one with Leonard Nimoy. And of course I was aware of the original series. My older brother was a big Trekker back in the day, big Trekkie. And I remember the series. Now, of course, the profundity of it and Gene Roddenberry's intelligence went right over my little prepubescent adolescent head. I was all wrapped up in the women, the really sexy women, and it was normally Kirk, but every now and then, they threw a bone to Leonard Nimoy's character Spock, and he would be in the cave with Mariette Hartley, and I just thought all of that was, I thought that was titillating. and I would drool over the women, the big breasted women and the mini skirts and the high boots and all of the suggestive dialogue between Kirk and the women, the relevance and the significance of the first interracial kiss went right by me. I was more involved and engaged with the dynamic, the fact that some alien was making Kirk and Uhura do this thing, and I'm
sure, yeah.
Anyway, I that's how Star Trek got into my DNA. In any case, I was aware of the enormity of the moment for me as a young actress. Leonard Nimoy was kind. He was generous. He actually asked me about my sad little credits on my resume. My resume was a bit weak at the time. And he's asking me about these musical theater credits in Ogunquit, Maine and Auburn, New York, in these little dinner theater situations. And so he just revealed himself to be this classy, kind man. And he said, would you read some sides with me? And sides, guys, are the little scenes they're willing to share with you from the overall project.
Oh, okay.
I said, well, of course. And he said, and do you mind? I'm gonna put you on tape. Do you mind if I film this? And I said, not at all. And so what that did was I go out in the waiting room. He's given me some things to think about. I remember his assistant, Teresa Victor, was very kind if I had a question. And I go back in and I'm reading these scenes from the beginning of the film with Kirk's son's character, David.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason it's significant that Leonard put this on film and taped it was that it saved me the trouble that those big auditions I mentioned earlier, where there's a lot of people in the room. It saved me from having to repeat whatever I did in the room with Leonard, just one-on-one in a very sort of unintimidating setting. I didn't have to go back and try to recreate, and with the pressure mounting each time you go back, and you've got a shot and you're getting ever closer to maybe being cast. And so, I mean, this man in one fell swoop got to know me. We read the sides. He took my hand at the end of the meeting as I was walking out and said, Robin, I have no doubt you can play the part, which I thought was, like a crazy, fabulous thing to say to me as I'm leaving. He said, but now it's up to the powers that be. And I understood, there were the mucky mucks above him, that also needed to weigh in.
Right.
And I ultimately, I went back to meet Harve Bennett. I was sent over in July, I think. This was in late June. In July, I was sent over just to knock on Harve Bennett's door at Paramount and say hi. And I did, and it was lovely. He, by the way, he turned out to be also like wired a bit like Leonard. He knew how to spread the love, so to speak. And I don't know if the two of them agreed that when I was finally cast, that they wouldn't make me feel as though I needed to follow in someone else's footsteps. That, I mean, without realizing it, I think they took a very generous tack. And that was that it was as if the part was never played before. Certainly the plot points were honored, but that, it was as if Saavik was born in that moment. And now Leonard and the actress would create their own collaborative character with each other. And I thought that was so brilliant because, it can be kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? You can feel very unsure of yourself. It's frightening enough showing up to a major motion picture set for the first time, especially when you feel somewhat insecure about the fact that you're trying to play someone unemotional when that's not really who you are at all. And you've been taught all your life to exude and to emote and to reveal, your inner feelings. I that alone for me was a huge hurdle. And I swear I thought I was going to get a pink slip the whole first week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And then I realized, we're so far in now, they can't fire me. But I sincerely thought I was going to get fired. That
could be overwhelming.
Pardon?
I said, I could see how that could be overwhelming.
Well, I can only relate it to me because again, if you know me, I'm so transparent, and I couldn't fib if I tried. my heart's on my sleeve. I cry at McDonald's commercials. You know, my family, I have two brothers and a dad, and whenever we watched a particularly emotional film together, they would always look at my mother and I, and we'd be weeping. So I'm a weeper.
I'm right there with you.
Are you?
I am right there with you.
Yeah, I get emotional when I'm happy, and I get emotional when I'm sad, and have a difficult time hiding it. And so the notion of it was almost like a dirty trick, let's give her first big role in a major motion picture, and she can't be emotional. It was like, oh my God.
Know everything that you know about you. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly, Tim. So, but in any case, the good news is Harv Bennett was a gentleman. I like to share. I unearthed these telegrams that I saved from him, and they're so dear. First, he sends, "Congratulations and welcome to the family. My fondest wishes for a happy voyage." And then he said,
lovely.
Right. And then he says, "Welcome aboard the good ship Enterprise. Have a wonderful trip. Fondly, Harv Bennett." That was for the first two movies.
Oh, how
and
lovely.
Then the second, those two telegrams came to me from the first two movies, but then he sent the one that was the most intriguing. And unfortunately, the plot line didn't go that way. He says, just before we started shooting Star Trek 4, "I too am delighted you are with us. Have a wonderful shoot and bring a Vulcan obstetrician along just in case. Love, Harv." But of course, they cut the dialogue. They cut the dialogue with regard to Saavik perhaps being pregnant with Spock's baby from the beginning of Star Trek 4. It was there, and then it got cut away. So in any case, just wonderful people. And Leonard kept his promise. I showed up at the first day of work, and I said, "Mr. Nimoy, you seem to think I know what I'm doing, but I really, really don't." And he said, "Robin, I'll take you every step of the way. You'll never be out on that limb. I won't do that to you." And so he probably directed me in a way, but I fully invited him to. I welcomed it in a way that another actress might find insulting. Because we would literally go sit down before every scene, and he'd say, "Okay," he'd say, let me hear it," and I'd say the lines. And if I wasn't saying the lines in quite in the Vulcan way that he preferred, he would say it for me, and I'd be like, "This is fabulous."
Yeah, seriously, why don't you just do it, Leonard?
Exactly. I'm a pretty mimic, and I just
That's
anyway.
awesome.
That's kind of how we did it together. That's how we rolled.
Well, you perfectly led into my next question. And because I only get like 3, I'm going to jump in and ask it before it gets preempted.
Oh,
as a fan of, the Star Trek universe, and particularly as a fan of Leonard Nimoy, who I grew up with, I think I'm right about your age or right around that age.
64.
Yeah, 53.
You're younger.
Yeah.
Don't say it.
Still, in any event, a huge fan of Leonard Nimoy, and it is so wonderful to hear that this person that you thought was a hero really was in real life, right? Like, because who didn't love Spock as a kid? He was. You were either Team Kirk or Team Spock, and I was all Team Spock, right? So, as they would say these days. So my question to you is try to be brief here, for me. What was it like to be directed by Leonard Nimoy? It sounds like it was a fabulous experience. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Again, I identified my lack of confidence right out of the gate, and I made it clear to him, I welcome your direction. I'm depending on your direction. So for instance, again, we would go sit by ourselves, and he would listen to me say the lines, but he also had, and I think this is a director's gift as well. He had the ability to kind of disarm you. For instance, before the last scene in the film, where the Katra ritual has been performed, and we're not 100% sure if Spock's soul has been restored, and he's walking away, and then he turns back, and the way they shot the scene, he's going down the line of each
Morgan Freeman,
friend, each colleague to see, does he remember them? Does he, you know, and for them to behold his face, etc. And I was first in line, and he came up to me just before we shot the scene, and he stepped into my space, maybe in a way that he hadn't quite before. We were face to face, and he kind of put his face past mine and whispered in my ear. He said, Robin, he said, how would you feel if you're walking down a New York City street and you see someone's now walking towards you that you were intimate with, that you loved in your past? And I, you know, and now his head is, you know, pulling away from mine, and I'm almost overwhelmed by the question, but I appreciate the question, and I'm about to try. I'm sort of in that mode of looking for the words to answer such a personal question, and in my sort of shyness and not embarrassment, but just I was blushing a little bit. You know, I looked up at him, and then I looked down, and he said, "That's it." And then when I looked back, he said, "That's what I want." And I went, "Oh, okay. So you do want her to kind of almost be overwhelmed in that moment, beholding you fully, as you greet us." And he said, "Yeah, okay, that's it." So he was like that. You know what I mean? He was gentle. He's a very accommodating director. I remember we choreographed the whole scene where Kirk comes down and his son has been killed. And we choreographed it, but Bill wasn't there. And then Bill came out of his trailer, and suddenly he didn't like the choreography. The way we were on a hill, and I happened to be standing higher up on the hill than Bill, and that made me taller simply by virtue of the plane of the planet's surface. And so we had places, you know, we did the old switcheroo. So he would be taller than I was. Honestly, you know, I think back, and because people always ask me what my impressions of Bill, and he was distant, he was removed. And I have learned since that he was extremely under a lot of pressure, you know, because he was apparently going to a job right after this. And so he was rarely on set. He was always in his trailer, whereas I kind of hung out with Walter and Jimmy and Nichelle and so on, and Merritt, you know, we all hung out.
Not at all jealous here.
Yeah. And, but is, you know, if I say removed or distant, I would also add brilliant. I really think he's brilliant. And my admiration grew more greatly later on when I watched him in Boston Legal, and I felt like he and James Spader created one of the most interesting male relationships I'd ever seen in anything creative. You know, my other favorite is Shawshank Redemption. You know, Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman, or Morgan Freeman, right?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And of course, there's always Kirk and Spock. I really love their relationship too. But in any case, did I answer your question?
You did. But I think it's interesting that we see, you know, Spock was the character who was the emotionally distant one, Kirk being the much more fiery, passionate one. But it sounds like it's almost the reverse of that in real life.
Maybe so. I think Bill has a sense of humor, but it's just I don't get it. It's not my. It's a very sarcastic sense of humor.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel that. That's just right by, like, what? I don't get it.
It's there.
Yeah.
Nobody gets it, but it's there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So just a few years ago, you got to reprise your role as part of a fan production, Starship Excelsior.
Yes.
So what was it about the fan production that appealed to you, and what was it like revisiting that character?
Well, I think right off the bat, I was tickled pink that, you know, somebody would call me out of the ether, out of my, you know, distant life in upstate New York selling real estate, you know, to come out and have fun. I find voiceover work especially fun. And I'm sorry that I didn't focus on that a little more. I did work periodically in voiceover commercials, that type of thing. I just really love, you know, anybody who's musical would do really well, I think, in voiceover work. At least that's how I explain why I had such an affinity for it. So in any case, it was a voiceover, and it was really fun now, 35 years later, for me to sort of inhabit the character a little more. She was more inside me than she was at the time. The pressure was different. It was less. And I just think I enjoyed the hell out of those guys. They directed me quite nicely, as I recall. So it was just kind of fun to come out and play and to be a part of something that Walter did. Did Nichelle participate as well? I think it was just Walter.
I think it was just Walter.
Yeah. So that's really why I enjoyed it so much, was just getting on my feet and doing something creative. When you're out of it for so many years, something like that, it's like getting an invitation to Disneyland or something. It's just a lot of fun, really enjoyable.
Would be
nice.
That's
Now,
awesome.
so one of the things I've noted a couple different times, and by a couple different times I mean almost every episode of this show, is that historically I have not been the biggest Star Trek fan, and it's one of those things that I'm getting to know better, and I'm working to know better, because so many people who listen to this show, who follow our Facebook group, are massive Trek fans, and so in order to have a connection with them and understand what it was about this universe that they liked, I've tried to get into it a little bit more. Growing up, I was always more of a Star Wars fan, just to be perfectly clear and on the record. You guys,
Cool.
yeah,
Growing
you guys were talking about the male to male relationships earlier, and I wanted to be like, I had Han and Chewie, but anyway.
He says growing up, he means yesterday.
I meant this morning, Kathleen, let's be fair. So now I want to talk to you a little bit. You mentioned this earlier a little bit. You said it got removed from the script from episode 4. Now, leading up to that, it was always my understanding, we're not going to go too much into depth on this, but it was always my understanding that PonFarr was never referenced before Star Trek 3. I was wrong. Actually, there's an original series episode. I had to look this up, so I'm going to tell you what I learned. So laughs and knowledge, that's what we're bringing. All right, so there was an episode entitled Amok Time, where Kirk and Bones have to take Spock back to Vulcan to partake in the ritual and save his life.
Okay.
Now, of course, in Star Trek 3, a young Spock also goes through this. And in some early versions of Star Trek 4, from what I had read, and what you were clearly alluded to earlier, your character was with child. Presumably, we'll call him for the moment Spock Jr. Now, I've seen you discuss this topic to varying details in other interviews, but what do you think it would have been like to portray a pregnant Vulcan? Because this is a very emotional experience, being thrust upon an not emotionless, but nearly emotionless race. Yeah. So I'm wondering how a Vulcan would approach pregnancy logically.
I didn't spend a lot of time thinking that through, to be honest, Tim, but it did, just the paradox I thought would be provocative and challenging, again, this enormously hormonal, traditionally hormonal, emotional time for a woman, for a female, played by a Vulcan, character. I thought there might be some room for some interesting humor there. That's one of the things I like about Star Trek, is that it always, finds a way to inject the humor in a situation. So in any case, I like I said, I didn't think it through too much, but at the time, because I wasn't as familiar with the franchise, I was listening to the fans, and the fans, my early on, I think even like within a week of being cast, there were some people in my manager's office in Los Angeles saying, we want her for a convention. And I said, oh my God, why would anybody want to hear me talk about anything? I just couldn't even think that I would remotely live up to something like that. And then I got over it. I got way over it, because I realized it was inevitable. It's a part of it. And I needed to jump in, and I'm so glad I did. I mean, I've the whole convention experience excuse me, has been so enriching, so rewarding. I think more for me than even the fans. Like I've made so many friends all over the world. I've traveled. It's just the gift that has been, relentless in my life. We paused during the pandemic, but I understand we're going to fire up later this summer. There's a convention in Vegas, I believe.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, Ticonderoga. Shatner's going to be up in northern New York with James Cawley up at the the Star Trek Museum up there.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Fingers crossed, toes crossed. Where's my shoelaces?
yeah. Oh, we'll all be masked, and it'll everybody will behave themselves. But in any case, going back to what you were asking me about Saavik being pregnant, I really enjoyed the fans' anticipation and expectation that was where this plot line was going, and it was their conjecture and projection of that made me think, well, of course that's where it's going, and the fact that they negotiated for the film. So the whole thing about casting me in the part, and it had been offered to Kirsty for sure. Saavik had been offered to Kirsty, and the graceful way, or the gracious way, both graceful and gracious way in Hollywood of saying, yeah, no, I don't want to do that part, is to simply offer an atrocious amount of money. And so that's what she did, and the result was what she wanted, which was the studio passed, and I remember when I was cast, I thought, oh gosh, I sure hope my good fortune hasn't come as a result of someone else's misfortune. And at the time, she was doing Cat on a Hot Tin Roof at the Mark Taper Forum. I mean, what actress wouldn't give an organ to play that part, to play Maggie? And another friend, James Morrison, who you might see, an actor, wonderful actor, at the Star Trek conventions, played Brick. And I think she was, maybe it wasn't Cheers, but she was on the schedule to do a pilot of some kind. So she had other career, opportunities going on at the time. And where was I going with all that? Oh, the fact that they negotiated for 4 movies when they negotiated for Star Trek 3. So it was the fans and the studio's position with me that way that made me think, oh, I'm going to be working 3 more movies down the line.
Right.
And so of course it came as a rude and unwelcome, but nevertheless, I'm still grateful. Notice that I was only, in the movie, they were essentially kicking Saavik to the curb. I was only in the film for, a couple of scenes at the beginning of 4. But, I read the script and I said, gosh darn it, there's only so much room in the story for everybody. And I loved that, in my mind, Star Trek 4 brought the franchise back to their winning recipe, if you will, or formula.
Right.
Yeah.
Humor.
Back to the roots.
Good ensemble acting, a simple message, preservation of life. It's one of the, I enjoyed it a great deal. Star Trek 4.
It had whales.
It had whales, exactly.
And I think it would have been interesting. It would have been interesting to see the pregnancy plot line actually happen, especially because later in the Star Trek franchise, in Deep Space Nine, they go into the Bajoran pregnancies. And I think that it would have been interesting to have gone from a Vulcan pregnancy to the Bajoran having her sneeze during pregnancy, having that be Kira's big pregnancy symptom was sneezing. Right. I think it would have been interesting if they had continued with the Vulcan pregnancy as well.
And I've often thought that they could have come back to the character later in time and introduced the child, whatever the child was, girl, boy. I thought that would have been interesting too, even though they might not have seized the moment then, but to circle back. But
yeah, I just wanted to see what Vulcan cravings were like.
Right? I want to see that hormonally irrational Vulcan. Like, I know I was not rational.
I don't want to say that happens because my wife listens to this, and I
want to say that the dad gets. The dad's the one that deals with the hormones.
That would have been hilarious.
That would have been way fun if Spock were actually the one who was dealing with all of that craving for the hormones.
Awesome.
Like peanut butter and pickles. I realize it's irrational, but that's what I want. And the baby would have been a quarter human, right? So that would have been an interesting thing to.
Right, exactly. And that's why I wanted to see where that was. That's why I always wanted to see where that would go, because there's so many avenues where you could take this and so many things that you could theorize about it. It's a lot of fun to kind of to chit chat and have a discussion in the nerdery.
Yeah.
So it is universal that funny moments happen behind the scenes of any movies. I mean, when you're filming for that long and you're with the same people that long, funny things happen. So are there stories you can share, funniest memories from working with the cast and crew?
Yeah, what's your favorite story?
I think I could probably muster up one or two. So one of my favorites was Christopher Lloyd, and I've told this before. I apologize for those who've heard it. Just the difference between us, my observations of him and my own experience. I could tell he was just a totally visceral actor. He didn't have to understand what stuff was, what he was holding, what the scrunchy special effect crab-like wormy things were around Spock's burial robe or whatever, the torpedo that he went down to the planet in. And whereas I was obsessed about, why is this in my hand? Which part of it am I talking into? Why do I have such deep pockets on my flak jacket? I wanted to understand everything. And I don't know really cumulatively what all that meant or lent itself in my performance. I probably not much, I don't know. But with Christopher, so in the scene where he's there and he says, what do I find? This weakling human, I can't even remember how he identifies us, but at the end of it all, he reaches down, he picks up the phaser. No, not the phaser. What is it called? What is it called? It's a communicator.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a visual thing, but his arms would go totally wide and he would scream to the heavens, beam me up. And Leonard would say, cut. Yeah, Christopher, you need to put the communicator next to your face, like you're talking into it. Oh yeah. And so he would start the whole little soliloquy again and reach that point, and he'd bend down, pick it up, and once again, beam me up, and it was hard to keep a straight face, because there we are, we're supposed to be all intimidated and obedient on our knees on the planet's surface, and David has just died. And anyway, so that was pretty hilarious watching him. And then the only other thing I can think of, guys, honestly, we shot it toward the beginning of the shoot. You know how things go out of sequence. Yet this was the end of the movie. We were out at the only time we were on location that I can recall. We went to Occidental College to shoot the scene where the Katra ritual takes place, and we're accompanying Spock's body into the proceeding into the altar, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And I'm behind. I'm situated, choreographed behind Bill. And at one of those times, he said to all of us just before we went in, because Dame Judith Anderson is inside waiting for us in the scene, and he says, let's all sing "There Ain't Nothing Like a Dame." And I'm like, oh God. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't think this is going to go over well, because my name's Robin, and I can't tell you how many times I got from men of a certain generation, really, they would meet me and they had to sing, and the red robin goes bobbing along. So I was like, I kind of felt like it was one of those moments for Dame Judith where she's heard it before. No, don't make us do it. But we had to. Action. And then I don't even know how the song goes. There ain't nothing like a dame. It's from the musical, right? About baseball. In any case, that went over like a lead balloon. But we it's hard to tell with Dame Judith. She doesn't crack a smile very often. But I will tell you this, and this isn't really funny, but because sometimes working on a set can be so tedious. I mean, and I really don't mean that's not, I don't mean to sound insulting to the profession. Just that it's a lot of hurry up and wait, and you repeat things quite frequently. So
Sure.
there I was that day, right behind Bill. And I thought, well, I'm going to try to find the seam between where his real hair begins and where that fabulous piece he's wearing starts. And I thought I found it. And that was just my own little private game that I played with myself, because someone was working his hair every 2 seconds. They would come over with a pick and make sure it was all in place, and rightfully so, because he's awesome and he's brilliant and he's the star. But so that was Robin's little.
But you really looked like you were concentrating, like
exactly.
you were so focused.
My mindless focus was, I was trying to exercise science fiction-y powers, looking like a laser right through the layers. Anyway, I'm being silly now. Sorry.
So 2 things out of your stories. Number one, when you said men of a certain age, instantly my mind went to the Jingle Bells version of Batman Smells Robin Laid an Egg, and that's where my mind went to. So I don't know which. That's probably the prepubescent age group that you were talking about. And then, frankly, the last story, that's my favorite. The fact that you're looking to find the hairline. I'm like, yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
And the worst part is you led into that saying it wasn't funny, and that was hilarious.
But how many people, if given the opportunity, would stand studying the back of his head with I'm gonna find it? Oh yeah, I totally would.
Yeah.
I think
right?
everybody who has ever looked at his hair would be like, where is it? I know it's there.
Oh, totally.
Well done.
Well, because the truth is, he wears it well.
Mhm.
I mean, like it's the best piece I've ever seen, ever.
And if we ever get him on the show, we'll talk about it.
He's beautiful, and he's a handsome man. He's an attractive man. That's the other thing. I'm sorry we're talking so much about Bill, but oh my God, what is he, 90?
He just turned 90.
Just turned 90, yeah.
And he's so he's erudite. He's in good health. He's sexy. He's just as good as he ever was.
It's clearly all that running around without your shirt on is very good for you.
And he's making my 45 look very sloppy. So
making my 28 not look so hot either. I saw the posts about him turning 90, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, no.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So you did a lot of sci-fi, right? Not just Star Trek, but there was just a lot of science fiction in your acting career.
Word gets around, Shannon.
Yeah, that was basically.
You're willing to have a prosthetic on your head or face or some part of your body. Yeah, this actress won't cave in and have paranoia, schizophrenia in special makeup. Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly. It's some sort of dysmorphic experience. But I'm actually curious about that. Like, was that intentional, or was it just because they said, oh, here's somebody who's good at acting with somebody who's wearing some sort of crazy lizard costume? I mean, I think of the dog thing that Christopher Lloyd was kind of petting, that sort of dinosaur lizard dog thing. Not every actor is going to be comfortable with that.
Right.
So was that part of the reason that you were constantly being tapped to do this kind of role?
Well, in fairness, it wasn't terribly constant, but I do think that the Babylon 5 folks definitely figured out, if somebody was willing to do it over there, they're going to be willing to do it over here with us, and so the two things incestuously crossed over one another. Sure. I have to say, I did enjoy Talera. It turns out the more covered up you are, the braver you are. Go figure. And I'm not like, I don't play Halloween like other people do. I've never wanted to be in a costume, but once they put that wig and the forehead on me for Talera, and I had that sort of, again, a sort of a militaristic uniform, the character came. And I just watched that 2 or 3 weeks ago, Gambits 1 and 2, for the first time in over 30 years. And I was quite impressed by the cast and by the story, and that I thought I did a competent job. I've never been able
better
to
than competent.
Saavik, but thank you. Oh, thank you. Good gravy. Thank you. So consequently, being hired on Babylon 5 and being completely covered from pretty much the bosom up, wasn't me except my eyeballs and my tongue. That I felt even more brave, but didn't have quite as much to do.
Right.
Sentience, crimes against sentience. And they're that cast is a lot of fun. Julie Caitlin Brown, that was a fun thing to have in common with her, because we had done we were guest stars on The Next Generation together, and then she had a regular part on Babylon 5. So I mean, clearly it worked for her as well.
Right.
This reputation that you can cope with futuristic stuff and weird makeup.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, and it makes a lot of sense that you are able to respond to a creature who maybe doesn't have great facial expressions to play off of. Like that's a skill. That's a skill set. So
this person isn't allergic to latex.
And isn't allergic to latex.
Exactly,
or
right?
Gum or anything else.
Doesn't break out.
Right.
I do remember drawing the line though. I did have a standard. I was set to go to a callback for one of the King Kong films. Linda Hamilton ultimately was cast, and I believe in the film King Kong and Queen Kong find one another, and I think they have one of them in a gymnasium about to receive a heart transplant. And I said to my agent, I said, I just can't do it. I can't do it. I can't play that. Homie can't act that. Because I was supposed to be a physician or something, aiding the operation, and I'm just like, I can't do it. Don't make me do it. Please don't make me pretend that. And so I didn't go to my callback on that one.
Nice.
Fair.
So as Tim has already mentioned, he is very much Team Star Wars versus being Team Star Trek.
Right.
And we know that not every franchise is for every person. But I do have a question on how you would go about converting Tim from the Church of Star Wars to becoming a disciple of Trek.
Oh, well, that's not fair. I like Star Wars, but if I had to pick one, I would go for Star Trek. And guys, full confession here, I'm not a huge fan of science fiction. It's not the entertainment that I go to or gravitate to naturally. But I think when you look at who Gene Roddenberry was as a human being, and his philosophies, and this enormously positive outlook that he projected in his storytelling, and the way he exposed human foibles, but always was striving to send the message of tolerance and the embracing of diversity and so on. It's like we need a message like that more than ever now. And all of that, as I said, I was joking earlier, that as a prepubescent, I was drawn to the erotic aspect of Star Trek. Gene liked his ladies. And Majel was one of the best dames I've ever met, his wife, but ultimately, he told important stories, and we've all scratched our head. What is it about Star Trek and fandom and everything else? But it's more often than not, it's, people come up to me and say, it made a difference in their lives. It gave them hope when they were the most discouraged. And
that's awesome.
And I stand by that. I stand by that. I don't know if Star Wars does that really, but I know Star Trek does. Oh yeah. Tim's nodding. Yeah, it does.
It's my thing. It's my jam. It's what I do.
Yeah, baby. Have they held up for you over the years? I mean, has it stayed?
I mean, there's things about each movie that I like or don't like, and I think that's true for any fan who's passionate about the series or the fandom that they're a part of. So there's things that I would like to have seen done differently. I've been pretty open about those things, but for the most part, there's things about the prequel trilogy that I kind of went, but I like. and I moved on. And there was things about the sequel trilogy, the latest ones, where I was like, but you know, I'm like, yeah, but as a package, as a whole, yeah, for me, they've held up.
Yeah.
So would you say then that Star Trek is your favorite sci-fi franchise? Or are there other sci-fi stories, books?
Oh, no. No question that Star Trek is my favorite science fiction franchise. Of course.
Of course.
What else am I
Of course.
What's second?
You know, and I love how it keeps reinventing itself. I really do. I love when there was a juncture when they I don't know how you guys refer to it, but when they cast Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto and to play the younger versions of the original cast, I just thought that was a brilliant moment in time. Who do we thank for that? Is that J.J. Abrams or? I
thought Quinto was awesome as a young Spock.
Oh, they did such an amazing job of casting all of them. And I'm a Simon Pegg fan, so.
Oh, love Simon Pegg.
Yeah.
But I mean,
get down from there. Sorry.
Chris Pine as young Kirk was amazing.
Spot
amazing.
And it was so funny seeing him in that. And then when Into the Woods came out, and he was in a Sondheim musical as Cinderella's Prince Charming, and it's like, oh my word. And it worked so perfectly. Like
Urban, I mean, the whole cast.
Carl Urban.
Uncanny.
Right.
Can we get Carl Urban on the show too?
Right. I felt like Star Trek got sexy back with the music, everything about that film.
Gorgeous.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I wept.
Really well done.
I wept in the following film. Wasn't the next film where Spock, the elder Spock, talks to the young Spock? Oh,
I know.
Oh, I thought that was just a stroke of brilliance and
it was so beautifully handled and so well done, just elegant.
Yeah,
a nice elegant nod to the original.
Hey, there's somebody else I want to call out, by the way. When I
go for it.
Star Trek 3, Tim, did you watch Star Trek 3 or Gambit? You said recently.
3.
Me too.
One of my favorite scenes is when Mark Leonard was so good, and he comes in and confronts Kirk, and they do that moment with the fire in the background, and it's on his hands, it's on Sarek's hands on Kirk's face and his eye. I don't know. Some moments in films that give you the goose pimples, and that one.
That was one of them, huh?
Yeah, you said it. You said it. Beautiful acting.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, so Robin, we've gotten to a point in our show where, as we're getting ready to wind up here, we'd like to play a little bit of a quiz with our guests.
Okay.
So we're hoping that you'll do this. It's a 5-question quiz.
I will do it, but prepare to be unimpressed.
Okay. Well, before you get too far in expressing your unimpressibility, this is all about Star Trek 3. So hopefully we're giving you a fighting chance.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. We don't like to make it too difficult, but we like to have a little fun with our guests. So it's a 5-question quiz. They're all multiple choice.
Okay. Oh,
now if you get 3 out of 5 correct, we'd like to send you one of these really cool I Gave to the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund mugs. Okay.
Yes.
If you get 4 correct, we're going to send you the mug as well as this book, which is Custodians of the Cosmos, which is written by Drayton Allen, the founder of our page.
Lovely.
And the book is about a man who wanted to join into Starfleet, couldn't make it. So he joined as a custodian to boldly clean up after those who boldly just went. And we'll make sure that Drayton sends a nice hello written in calligraphy or something in the front of it. Okay, it'll be vandalized either way.
Yeah. I have a question. My question is the only one that doesn't indicate what the answer is. So if somebody... So if I'm supposed to be like yes or no, I will not be able to answer that.
Okay, I fixed it.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, we'll take that out in post. Okay, also...
Before we start the quiz, can I put a plug in here for a second? And you can always edit it out.
if you want to wait a minute, we're going to give you a chance to plug anything you got coming up.
Oh my God, fabulous.
Yeah, so that's one of our things. We like to make sure that whoever we have on, you've been so kind and nice to us to be on and spend your time with us. We're going to give you a chance to shamelessly plug anything you need to shamelessly plug.
Cute. Okay.
Okay.
Super.
Now, one more thing before we start the game. So with 3 questions, you get the mug. 4 questions, you get the mug in the book. If you get less than 3, so clearly 2, we're going to take a picture of you and make a meme out of you and share it with our Star Trek fan base.
Great.
Would you be okay with that? We call it a fun sequence.
Oh, sure.
And if you do get the meme, you're in really good company because we only have 2 people that have ever gotten the meme before.
Okay, right. Because only 2 other people are that.
Dan Povenmire.
Yeah.
Was one of them. Dan Povenmire, the co-creator of Phineas and Ferb, and Frank Duran, who's the host of a podcast called The Warp Shelf.
Okay.
Actually 3, and we just had another gentleman. His name is Jimmy Buys. He's an author. He's on Jeopardy, so we gave him some harder questions. But
so you're telling me that the women have escaped this consequence, this fun sequence so far?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
We have no Femalians.
Okay.
All right. So go ahead with the questions.
All right. This race was the original villains of Star Trek 3 before the studio's involvement. A, the Romulans, B, the Dominion, or C, the Xindi.
The Romulans, eh?
You got 1.
There you
Look
go.
at you go.
I can't believe it.
Well done. Number 2. This character is the only one to utter Commander Krug's name in Star Trek 3. A, a Klingon officer. B, James T. Kirk. C, Krug's love, Valkyris. Would you like me to read those again?
Kirk. B, Kirk.
Would you like to try again?
It's Valkyris, isn't it?
Yes. Right before he shoots her ship, after she gives him the Genesis information.
Yes.
So.
No, that's okay. I got it wrong. Fair is fair. You're going to get a meme out of this, I think. Carry on.
Hey, at least your hair looks good for a meme. It'll be okay.
That's right.
All right.
Krug, to prove to Admiral James T. Kirk that he is an enemy to be taken seriously, orders one of his men to kill one of the prisoners the Klingons are holding on the surface of the Genesis planet. Kill one of them, Krug says. It doesn't matter which. The Klingon warrior is then shown walking behind the prisoners, deciding which person to kill with his knife.
True.
Whom does the Klingon select to be his victim? A, Captain Esteban. B, David Marcus. C, Saavik. Or D, Spock.
Well, this is a trick question because in my mind, he chooses Saavik, but David jumps in front, stops him from knifing me and is the one who ends up dying. So
that would be correct. That would be correct.
Saavik is correct. That is who he chose.
Yay.
And then David went to fight him to keep him from stabbing you,
right.
Or your character, shall we say.
You now have 2 questions correct.
Okay.
Just before the end credits roll, a title card appears. What does it say? A, the end. B, and the adventure continues. C, to be continued. Or D, the beginning.
I'm going to say B, and the adventure continues.
Congratulations on your mug.
You have escaped the meme world.
You are meme free.
Listen, let's do a meme anyway.
Have I told you how much I love you?
Would that be fun? Yeah, let's do it anyway. What do you want?
We have 1 more question. Dr. David Marcus admits to Lieutenant Saavik that Genesis is a failure because of a certain component he used in its makeup. What is the problematic component? A, antimatter. B, protomatter. C, trilithium. Or D, dilithium.
B, protomatter.
It is.
Very good.
You get a book too.
But if you're serious about this meme thing, I'm just saying.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
What is a meme? How does a meme work? Do I have to move, or do you make it move?
I'm just gonna take a picture of you and make funny things around you.
Okay.
So.
Right. So tell me when.
No, I'm just shooting photos. Don't worry about it. Just do your thing.
Okay.
He's just waiting for the right face.
I'll just take one of those 20 and make a meme out of you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you can find one where she doesn't look gorgeous, best of luck to you.
Oh, honey, stop.
Oh, please.
Well, it's not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
She's not wrong. All right, so you got 4 out of 5. That gets you the book and the mug. And so after we say our goodbyes to the audience, hang out for a couple seconds afterwards, and we'll make sure we get your shipping address. We really do want to send those things to you, okay?
Bet, honey.
So, all right, awesome.
Robin, thank you so much for being on the show today.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Can you tell our listeners where they can go to find more about all your previous acting work and what you're doing now?
Oh, you're so sweet. I don't know about my previous acting work. I don't need anybody to do a wild goose chase on that. But I wanted to put in a plug for my friend Hallie Todd, who now, what character did she play? She played something related to Data, like his girlfriend or something. Or his daughter. Could she be his daughter?
I got to look it up, actually, to be honest with you.
Well, in any case, Hallie Todd wrote a movie with her husband, Glenn Withrow, and her daughter, Ivy Withrow, called The Last Champion. And it's one of the best films I've ever seen. It came out at Christmas time because it's a wonderful Christmas movie, but you can watch it any time of year. And I just want to put in a plug for Hallie's movie. It's on Amazon Prime, I think.
Awesome. And she
was
Data's daughter.
Data's daughter. There you
High
go.
five.
I love it. We're all like
Googler.
frantically Googling.
That's awesome.
Thanks, listeners, for checking it out.
And could you tell us once again where we can find this? I'm sorry.
I believe it's a film called The Last Champion. It stars Cole Hauser. It's a beautiful movie that Hallie did with her family, Glenn Withrow and Ivy Withrow, and Hallie stars in it, and she's phenomenal actress. And so the Star Trek fans are familiar with Hallie, and I believe it's on Amazon Prime. But just Google the title, The Last Champion, and you'll know where to find it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Oh, nice.
It looks like that. Thanks, guys. That's right.
Yay, Google. And then, of course, for Robin's work, you can also always go to imdb.com, and that'll have all of her previous acting work, and you guys can check out everything she's been in and find it there.
We will make sure that Tim and Nick, our wonderful man behind the curtain, will put the link for Hallie's movie in our description as well, in addition to the link to your IMDb, so that people can explore your work, because you did so many cool things.
Oh, God bless it. No, yes. I don't know about that. And you know, there is something else I should say. I am a real estate agent, and I'm a really good real estate agent. So if somebody was thinking of buying or selling a house, and this doesn't matter where in the country it is, call me, and I will make a referral, and I will oversee things with you and be able to bounce ideas about whether you're buying or selling a home with you. So if somebody wants to work with Robin Curtis to buy or sell a house, I can help them. It doesn't matter if they're in Milwaukee or Santa Fe or Seattle. I can help.
That is
how cool would that be?
Right? I just want to be able to tell somebody I bought a house and Robin Curtis was my real estate agent.
Seriously.
Right. I mean, how cool would it be to say when somebody says, well, who'd you get? Because everybody has, I always ask, do you have a real estate agent you recommend? Yeah.
As a matter of fact,
I bought my house through Saavik. She was awesome.
Very unemotional about the process, which was great.
Right. Oh, God bless it. Yeah. No.
She was able to lay out everything I needed to know. No emotion whatsoever. It was great.
Right. I said your most logical choice.
There you go. It is logical that you should call. Absolutely.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. So we want to remind everyone listening that subscribing is the single most important thing you can do to ensure that we get more amazing guests like Robin Curtis, and you get funny moments to listen to, because Robin had some awesome stories today. So please subscribe to our show. It's going to help more than you're ever going to realize. And be sure to check out Robin's work. If you're not familiar with some of the stuff that she's done before, you kind of need to be. So make sure you do that as well, okay? And remember, if you're not happy with the content of our videos today, all you have to do is submit in triplicate, of course, because, well, that's only logical. One copy for you, one copy for us, and of course, one copy for the Federation files. This will be reviewed at our semi-annual bi-quarterly retreat at Mount Celea on planet Vulcan. Except, of course, when PonFarr boils the blood of the male Vulcans and interrupts the schedule. It might be delayed a little bit for that, but I'm sure we'll get it around to it at the next logical availability.
Robin, this has been absolutely delightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Live long and prosper.
Oh, you guys too. God bless. Live long, love long.
Tim's just like, I have thumbs.
That's how you do it, right?
Hands,
There you go.
baby.
You did it, Tim.
I did it.
First step into becoming a Trekkie. You can do it.
I've become Trekicated. Oh God. All right. Robin, thank you so much. This was awesome. We really enjoyed your company. And
Thanks.
goodbye,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks for watching.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirts Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation that helps out sick kids when they need it most.
And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 54. He'll know that when he puts on the red shirt and stands between Godzilla and Kong, 14 minutes after being teleported, that he did not leave his family destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back, and what's left of that tattered shirt. On behalf of the rest of the hosts of Funny Science Fiction, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on one of our future episodes, please contact us by means of our Facebook group, Funny Science Fiction. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FunnySci-Fi, or you can go to DraytonAllen.com and click the Contact Me link at the bottom of the page. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Copyright 2020 by Drayton Allen. Original music by Jordan Michaels. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned in this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation of or by Funny Science Fiction or its sponsors. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at DraytonAllen@DraytonAllen.com.